Good afternoon and welcome to the City Club of Portland Friday Forum. City Club is where we bring civic-minded people together to make Portland and Oregon a better place for everyone to live, work, and play. I'm Karen Curvin, president of City Club, and I would like to welcome members and guests alike, those of you who join us today at Centennial and those of you listening on OPB radio or watching on Portland Community Media. The generous support of City Club's corporate and media partners ensures we put on the state's best civic programs week after week. I'd like to thank our media partner, Oregon Business Magazine. Our current Friday Forum sponsors are AARP, Barron Liebman, Iberdrola Renewables, Perkins Coie, Portland General Electric, and Providence Health and Services. We are grateful for your support and commitment to City Club's mission. Please join me in a warm round of applause for all of them. We are partnering with Portland Parks Foundation for our next civic drinks on Tuesday, September 9 at the Village Ballroom at the Oregon Public House. Yes, we'll be visiting the Oregon Public House after our recent Ballot Palooza was scheduled there, and it was a lot of fun. So we encourage you to join us on September 9th. We will bring together park supporters to celebrate and help protect Portland's park legacy. You can learn more about City Club events, purchase tickets, and become a member on our website, pdxcityclub.org. As always, City Club will be live tweeting at today's event. You can follow or mention us at PDX City Club, and be sure to follow the conversation by using the hashtag City Club in your own tweets. Today's moderator, Danny Ledesma, will facilitate a Q&A session with the audience and our guests, Superintendents Karen Gray, Don Grotting, and Carol Smith, at the end of today's program. Members, please come to the microphone to ask your question. For all of our audience members, please locate the index cards on the center of your tables and write your question on them during the forum. Hold your cards up high, and City Club staff will collect them prior to the start of the Q&A. And now for our program. City Club will celebrate its centennial anniversary in 2016. A milestone of this sort is a moment for reflection on the past and looking to the future. As we begin a new year of programming, we have an opportunity to honor and reflect on 100 years of research, advocacy, and forums, and to ask, what will Portland and Oregon look like in the next 100 years? In response to this question, we are pleased to announce that this year's Friday Forum programming will have an intentional focus on racial equity, and this will be a lens we will use moving forward in the next 100 years. Our programs will focus on how public policy, philanthropy, and our business practices can increase racial equity in our city and state. We will build on City Club's proud tradition of including equality and justice in our research and advocacy, and join the efforts of civic and community organizations to make Portland and Oregon an equitable place to live, work, and play for everyone. Friday Forums will amplify conversations that are already going on and face assumptions about the state of race in Oregon. It is our hope that we will catalyze a generation of leaders to take racial equity seriously, now and for our future. I want to thank the Friday Forum committee members, volunteers, for your leadership and effort this year. Caitlin Baggett, the chair of the Friday Forum committee, Felisa Higgins, Eddie Marino, Damian Munsinger, Cheryl Myers, Mary Nolan, Sunny Pettit, Jasmine Reese, Bobby Reagan, Reverend Joseph Santos Lyons, Felicia Tripp Folsom, and Sharon Van Sickle Robbins. Please join me in thanking them. And now for today's Friday Forum. The State of Our School, Leading for Racial Equity, is a fitting place to begin this year of focus. Danny will moderate a conversation among our 3 school superintendents and explore what our school districts are doing to improve graduation rates for students of color so we can close the achievement gap. Today's speakers are Sheila Martin. Sheila is Director of Institute of Portland Metropolitan Studies and the Population Research Center at Portland State University. She teaches courses on economic development policy, mentors students interested in economic and community development, and is a community liaison to PSU's resources and knowledge on urban studies issues. Dr. Martin's research and teaching interests include sustainable economic development, regionalism, and technology, economics, and policy. She will provide us with background research to inform and set the stage for the panel discussion. Danny Ledesma is currently the Education Policy Advisor to Governor Kitzhaber. Previously, she worked at the Portland Housing Bureau, where she was Director of Equity Policy and Communications, and she has served as Policy Director for City of Portland Commissioner Nick Fish. She has held numerous positions at the Bureau of Housing Community Development. She was Director of the Up on Top After School program and a high school teacher. And I want to take just a moment to congratulate Danny on receiving the Bravo Award last night at the annual Hispanic Heritage Celebration hosted by the Hispanic Metropolitan Chamber. The award recognizes her as an outstanding role model and honors her for the work she's contributed to the economic and social advancement of Latinos in Oregon and Southwest Washington. Karen Gray has spent 32 years in public education and is the current superintendent of the Park Rose School District and former superintendent of the Coos Bay School District. Don Grotting began serving as David Douglas superintendent in July 2010. This year, Mr. Grotting was named Oregon Superintendent of the Year by the Confederation of Oregon School Administrators. Carol Smith has served as superintendent of Portland Public Schools since October 2007. Smith led efforts to support more effective teaching in PPS classrooms and build stronger partnerships with higher education, community organizations, and other public and private partners. Please join me in welcoming today's guests.
Good afternoon. This is a really great turnout, and I'm really not surprised because, like many of you, I sent my daughter off to school on Tuesday, and even though it's her 12th time doing that, I still get a little bit nervous. I can't wait for her to get home from school so I can call her, and so I can talk to her about how her day went, what are her classes like, and what are her hopes and expectations for the year. And I think that the reason that so much of us put so much stock in that first day of school is that many of our hopes and dreams for the future of our children are wrapped up in our expectations and our demands from our public school system. So we care a great deal about what happens to our kids at school. But from a broader perspective, we care about the education system because we know that the future of our region depends on our ability to cultivate their talent and in their ability to apply those talents to improve our community. That's why the legislature passed the 40-40-20 initiative, affirming the landmark goal that by 2025, 40% of adult population in Oregon would have a bachelor's degree or higher degree, 40% would hold a post-secondary credential, and the remaining 20% would graduate from high school ready to work. So my job today is to get us all sort of on the same page about the state of education in our community, and in particular in relation to those 40-40-20 goals and how racial and ethnic achievement gaps are playing out in the system. So I'm going to do that using some statistics from our regional indicators website, Greater Portland Pulse. You have a handout on your table that has many of the statistics I'll be talking about, you can find those and even more detail on our website at portlandpulse.org. We're tracking over 50 different data series on the website, not only about education, but also about the other issues that community members told us were important to them. And we're doing that not just to track the data, but also to facilitate dialogue like the one we're going to have today. And I just want to take a moment to thank the people who have been supporters and sponsors of Greater Portland Pulse since we started this in 2010. Scott Robinson's here from Metro, and they have been steadfast partners on understanding that it's really important to have a regional set of indicators so that we can do regional collaboration. PSU Institute for Sustainable Solutions, Jennifer Allen's been here, and they're a great partner in continuing to evolve the site. Lynn Valenter's here from WSU Vancouver, and they recognize that our region includes Vancouver and that we really need a regional set of data to work with. Mary Lee's here from Multnomah County, and she encouraged us from the beginning to put together a set of data that'll help us track how our families and communities are doing. The City of Portland's Bureau of Planning and Sustainability has been a partner all along with the original support from former Mayor Sam Adams and continued support from Mayor Charlie Hales. And the cities of Vancouver and Beaverton have also supported this effort over the years, so it really is a regional effort. And we're launching a new site today. I encourage you to look at it even if you've been there before. And that new site couldn't have been as successful as I believe it is without the steadfast devotion and dedication of our staff, particularly Liza Moorhead, our Director of Research and Web Development. She's also a very active City Club member. So let's get to the data. I want to start with our region's changing demographics because that really sets the stage for what's going on in our schools. And demographers like to look at population pyramids, and it's really just a picture that shows how our population is distributed by age and sex. And what it shows is that we have two population pyramids, one for the population overall and one for everybody who's not white and not Hispanic. So what we see there is that although 6% of the general population is age 0 to 4, over 10% of the non-white population is age 0 to 4. So that means that the increasing diversity in our schools is seen first by our teachers in the classroom. And it also means that that increasing diversity that we've experienced over the years is going to continue in the future. So amid that changing demographic picture, let's take a look at the educational attainment of our adults as it stands today in comparison to our 40-40-20 aspiration. In the Portland metropolitan region, 35% of our adults hold a bachelor's degree or more. About 9% hold an associate's degree. About 26% have some college but no post-secondary degree. And 22% have a high school diploma but no further education. 9% of our adults have not graduated from high school, have no college, have no high school diploma. So unfortunately, this falls far short of our 40-40-20 goal. And among people of color, educational attainment is much lower. Among African Americans, 23% have a bachelor's degree. Among Latinos, 15% have a bachelor's degree. And Native American adults, 11% hold a bachelor's degree or more. So because educational attainment is so intertwined with economic success, educational achievement gap means a gap in economic opportunity. Now, many people say that we need to start fighting the achievement gap when children are very young. And so if we take a look at third grade educational achievement, we see that this gap is already beginning to emerge in third grade. Across Portland's districts, children of color, economically disadvantaged, and migrant students meet standards for reading and math less often than do other students. And we start to see the gender gap emerge in third grade as well. In third grade, boys are meeting the reading standards less often than our girls, although they're still meeting the math standards more often than girls at that point. So these performance gaps emerge in third grade, and they widen as children progress through school. So when we look at four-year cohort graduation rates, that's where we really see the gap beginning to get wide. And I want to just take a second. I was asked to explain the four-year cohort graduation rate. This is a new way of measuring graduation rates. I think we started doing this a few years ago. And it looks at a cohort of high school students entering ninth grade and allowing for students who change schools and so on. It follows that cohort through to the 12th grade and asks how many of those students graduate within 4 years. So the four-year cohort graduation rate ranges in our districts from 85% for Riverdale to 55% for Reynolds. And I'm talking just about the Portland school districts here. The gap between white students and students of color is as high as 20 percentage points in those districts. And the gap between girls and boys in some districts can be as high also as 20%. So we've got an economy that offers economic opportunity to those with education, an increasingly diverse school-age population, and many students of color and boys who are graduating high school at much lower rates than other students. So let's look at this data in context. There are lots of factors that affect student achievement, and many of those don't play out within the classroom. So let's start by looking at what happens when children are born. Low birth weight babies begin with a strike against them because research shows that they are more likely to suffer from health issues throughout their lives. And children of color are more likely to be born at low birth weight than are other children. And in Multnomah County, African American children especially have very high low birth weights. 11% of African American babies are born at low birth weight. So second, let's look at poverty. Poverty has risen steeply in Multnomah County, particularly among children of color. 1 in 4 children in Multnomah County is living in a family that's below the poverty level. And we're not, in the poverty level, just so that you understand what that means, the federal poverty level for a couple with 1 child is about $18,500. So 1 in 4 children are born into families making that little money. Among African American children, the rate is 60% in Multnomah County. And Latinos, 45% of Latino children are in poor families. Native American children, about 50% are living in poor families. And poverty sometimes leads to homelessness. And we know that without homes, children have a difficult time consistently attending and performing well in school. Homelessness has also risen quite a bit recently and ranges from about 4% in the Portland Public School District to over 9% at Reynolds. Finally, the superintendents can tell you about the many languages that children speak in their schools. And in Multnomah County, about 19% of people ages 5 and over speak a language other than English at home. And that really challenges our schools to help children achieve and to help families get engaged in their children's education. So I hope these data points provide a common foundation for this dialogue that we're going to have today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Danny to start the dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila, for that grounding, and thank you to everyone here for joining us today. I think this is a really good representation of so many good professionals that are working on education and equity in particular, and I'm really excited about the conversation and the dialogue that we're going to have. So why don't I start it off with asking our superintendents to give us a profile with regards to racial demographics in their districts. And so, Carol, can you tell us a little bit about your district, PPS, and tell us what the current profile is and how you've seen that profile change?
I will. So Portland Public Schools serves 48,000 students, which is roughly, there are 6 districts that serve students in the city of Portland, and PPS has about half of those students in our district. We've been in a growth mode for the last 5 years. So each of the last 5 years, we've seen increases at the lower grades, after having been decades as a declining enrollment district. So this is significant that we're now in a demographic shift that is swinging back up. We have Portland State University projections that look at us adding another 5,000 students over the next decade. So that's really significant to now start preparing for growth after having been managing a decline. Demographics are very consistent to what Sheila just described. So our fastest growing group is our Latino students, which is roughly 16% of our students right now, and that's been growing, and I see the trend continuing. African American students, roughly about 11% of Portland Public Schools, and that has actually declined. 8% of our students are Asian, about 1% Native American, about 1% Pacific Islanders, and 7% that identify with multiple racial groups. So that's our racial breakdown. About 14% of our students receive special education services. About 45% of our students are eligible for free and reduced price meals, and 8% are emerging bilinguals or receiving English language learner services. And we right now support 5 different languages, meaning we do interpretation and translation, and are preparing to add a 6th. So we do Spanish, Vietnamese, Mandarin, Russian, Somali, and we're adding Oromo. So that's our picture.
Thanks, Carol. Don, do you want to give us the profile of David Douglas?
Yeah, real quick, we serve about 11,000 students. We have a district-wide poverty rate of about 80%, and I just found this out the other day, that in 3 of our elementary catchment areas, over 60% of the parents are on food stamps. So that was illuminating for me, and the other catchment areas are 50% or above. We have our white population is a minority now. It's currently at 42%. We have about 25% Hispanic, 15% Asian, 10% Black, 6% multi, and less than a percentage of Native American. In addition, David Douglas serves all of the students birth to 5 who have been identified with some sort of learning or physical disability in Multnomah County. So we actually serve students in Karen's district and in Carol's district. Something just in the past decade, we've went from 54% poverty to up over 80% poverty. So things have really starting to change over the past decade.
Karen?
Yes, so Park Rose School District has a fairly flat enrollment over the last, I've been there 8 years, and about 3,500 students and about 15 square miles. And we're over by the airport, in case you don't know where Park Rose School District is. We have 36% students who are white, and our Asian population is around 14%. African American, 14%, and Hispanic, 25%. Students identifying as multi-ethnic, 9%, and 2% Pacific Islander. So Park Rose has an amazing variety and diversity of students. As with, I think, my neighbor David Douglas, we have over 50 spoken languages in the district, and when kids register, they identify language, and this was the first time we've been over 50, so we're really interested to see where that goes. We're about 20% English language learner students, and our school district on average is 75% free and reduced, but 2 of our schools are 100%. So we have a lot of families that are in need. Our special ed number is around 12 to 13%, and that's Park Rose. Very diverse.
Thank you. Let's explore a little bit more deeply about some of the demographics and the community groups that you mentioned. So, Carol, I'm wondering if you can tell us about Portland Public Schools' work with the African American community and the Native American community. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing to engage those communities. Maybe tell us areas where you feel you have some areas of strength, and maybe share with us a place where you may struggle.
So I will say one of the things that we've done in general has been really working on having our staff begin to reflect the demographics of our students, and that's someplace that you can see an enormous gap. And when I came to work in the district, there was an achievement gap that was it was huge, it was persistent over time, and totally unacceptable. So what we've done right at the beginning is really put equity at the heart of our work and have that on a policy level, on a staffing level, on what are culturally responsive practices, both in terms of how we provide instruction, what's happening in the classroom, but also what's happening in our business practices. And we partnered with the Coalition of Communities of Color for a full year in developing a policy, a racial educational equity policy that really has provided the framework for everything we do. Because what we recognized, first and foremost, we needed to change the culture of our organization in terms of everything that we do. In terms of the African American community specifically, some of this is about our staff and our relationships with students and the relationships we build. Some of it is about how we leverage our relationships with partners. So for instance, Black Parent Initiative right now is partnering with us on our third grade reading campaign, which is one of our key priorities, having every one of our students read proficiently by the time they end third grade, which we believe changes their entire trajectory, the entire experience in K-12, if in fact they're able to read by the time they complete third grade. Black Parent Initiative is helping us organize family reading nights and assemblies at our schools, where we're bringing in sports figures or authors who've come through Portland Public Schools and getting families excited about reading together. The Coalition of Black Men has been working with us on providing mentors in a number of our schools. They also came and with our board, we're part of the greeting for students coming back to Jefferson High School on the first day of school. We're partnering with SEI in a number of, so Self-Enhancement Inc. in a number of our schools, and it's a community organization that's really builds relationships starting as early as second grade, not only with the student but also with the family, so that they are able to pick up where the school leaves off and really support students being successful in school. But one of our exciting partnerships has been at Jefferson High School, where every student entering there, it's a partnership with SEI, Jefferson High School, and PCC. You enter knowing you are heading on to community college, and you have the full school support of SEI. So you've got the community college, the high school, and a community partner ensuring your success in school. So those would be some of the ones I would call. Native American community, the couple I would call out as being really exciting. Again, it's both having our staff capacity and relationships with community partners, and it's a both and. This is not an either or. We're adding a Native Montessori program and early childhood, because we believe this starts in the early years, that you build strength as students enter the system and then need to provide support as they move through. But we'll be starting a new early Native Montessori at the Clarendon site in North Portland this year. We're working with Native American Youth and Family Association on a generations project at the Foster site in Outer Southeast, which is really exciting. It's combining housing for foster families to provide permanent, stable homes, and then combining that with an early learning center that starts with 0 to 3, pre-K, kindergarten, and then support continues on into the elementary school. This is a huge deal because many of our Native students are foster students, which means unstable housing, and they then transition, and every time you change schools, you put another dent in your ability to be successful. So those are some of the ones I call out as promising practices.
Could I follow up with you and ask you to maybe share a challenge that you've encountered?
I'll do you a big one, which is exclusionary discipline, and this would be the second one of my big 3 priorities that we've set as a district, and it's been something we have focused on. So over the last 3 years, We've decreased the incidence of students being excluded from school for disciplinary reasons, so either suspended or expelled. And it's decreased for all of our racial groups. However, it's decreased more swiftly for white students than for our students of color. So the disproportionate experience of a student of color in our system is still dramatically higher. And the goal that we've set is over the next 2 years that we decrease the disproportionality by 50%, as well as decrease the incidence of students being excluded from school. Because the relationship, these are students where we're excluding them from school, and they're the very students who need every ounce of instruction they can possibly get, and there's a direct correlation between being expelled one time and having a significantly lower odds of graduating in 4 years. So it's one of the things that we're really tackling, and it's been a challenge. And again, we're tackling on a policy level on what supports you need in the classroom in order to support kids staying in school. So it's one that we're taking on in a big way.
Thanks, Carol. Let's come over to this end. Karen, tell us about the Latino and immigrant communities at Park Rose, and maybe tell us some areas of strength where you've been able to engage with those communities, and maybe share a challenge as well.
So I also wanted to start a little bit at a policy level around equity for the district, because it is where we have grown the most as a school district, and I'm amazed at the evolution of equity policy in all of our districts. And so I did want to mention that our very first go at even looking at equity as an issue stemmed out of our data, and when we attempted to look at it as an all-district policy, we had some major struggles with some board understanding and from community understanding, and through the help of the Coalition of Communities of Color and the All Hands Raised initiative, we had so many partners that came to help us to really open our eyes and help us assess where we were, that our district has made a full turnaround. And I'm really, really proud of that. And so out of that work has also come some goals that we've created through our district-wide equity team around discipline, and also around hiring and around creation of an equity lens. And I would feel remiss if I didn't give you kind of that high-level beginning, because you don't just jump into this work one day and go, wow, I think I'm going to go work with this and see what happens. It's really intentional, and it comes out of a big heart for all kids in our school districts. So with regards to our Hispanic population, we've started a wonderful partnership through the Portland Children's Levy with Latino Network. And this is the first time Park Rose has been able to really partner with Latino Network and their wonderful director, Carmen Rubio, who's a hero of mine. And so we have a Juntos Aprendemos program for 3- and 4-year-olds that's bilingual, and I'm very excited about that. In addition, our Hispanic parents group, our PTO with our Hispanic parents group, has gone crazy. And they are so involved, and we're big, big helpers in passing our 2010 bond. So we're really lucky to have that moving so forward. With regards to immigrant populations, our big partner in our newest SUM program, Schools Uniting Neighborhoods, at our middle school is IRCO. And IRCO is the Immigrant Refugee Community Organization. They are huge in East County. And so they've been working with us as one-to-one partners on a big acceleration grant we got from the Department of Ed, as well as our SUN program. We also have some programs that are specific to our African American population as well, but I think Carol covered a lot of that. And one of our newest partners is SEI, and they're our SUN partner at one of our elementary schools. So the last thing I would mention is the AVID program, Advancement via Individual Determination. We are the only K-12 AVID school district in Oregon, and AVID last year had a 100% graduation rate. and 100% of the kids college accepted with 50% with full rides. These are all kids of color. These are all kids that 3 years ago would have been in my 40% rate, are now in my 100% rate, leading the charge. And so what is the challenge? The challenge is resources and making certain that you are able to make this a sustainable program.
Okay, Don, can you tell us a little bit about your Latino and immigrant populations and some of the work that you're doing?
I think Karen stole my thunder, a lot of it. First of all, our Latino population has doubled this decade. So we're at 25%. Of that 25%, a large percentage of those students are also some of our second language students. So one of the things in particular that David Douglas did was to make sure that those students remained in their classroom to receive their language acquisition, English language acquisition, before they were being taken from their core subject areas, and their intervention was outside the core subject areas, so they were missing a lot of instruction. So we've started that 2 years ago, and we are starting to see our achievement improve, as well as our AMAOs regarding second language students. So that was a big push, and also in working with our union, because a lot of those teachers had not been trained to provide that instruction. And so we were able to work with our union leadership, and now the teachers are glad, because those kids are theirs. They don't want them leaving their classrooms. And that has really, really been a great thing for us, and we're starting to reap some benefits there. Also, we have, at the student level, we have several student Latino clubs, as well as we're trying to have some parent Latino clubs. Also, we are just entering into an agreement with Stand for Children, who will be coming into one of our elementary schools to provide family engagement, to empower those parents, to empower their students. So we are excited to be working with Kim Melton. I think another thing we talk about, and we talk about Latino students or any demographics, is it's so important to have an effective educator in every classroom and an effective principal in every classroom. We've also been fortunate to partnership with Chalkboard and working on how do we get effective educators and effective administrators in those classrooms. COSA just put out some information that an effective teacher determines 33% of your child's success. The other 33% is determined by the leader of that school. And then the other 3% is determined by the family, background knowledge, and everything. So as leaders, when you think we are responsible for 2/3 of what's going to happen to that child, we need to start thinking how we're going to empower, how we're going to provide access. And finally, I'll just end a lot of the things that these guys were doing, SUN programs, all hands raised, the collaboratives that were trying to eliminate disparities in disciplines. One of the struggles that I have is a lot of my students are undocumented students. So when it comes time to sign up for an AP class or a college level class, when they're filling out scholarships, it requires their social security number, so they know that they're not going to be able to do that, and so they bow out. And we have some extremely bright children of color that are bowing out, and somehow we need to find out a way to have them to be able to have access that all other children have.
Thank you. We heard some really powerful examples of strategic partnerships, of district-wide policies, of working with educators, of engaging with communities. And I'm wondering if I could ask you to think about areas where you're encountering challenges or struggles, and maybe provide for us examples or hopes of dreams of a countywide or strategies or policies that transcend your districts in strategies that would help to really move the dial for kids of color, and maybe think about folks who are in the audience and what can folks in the audience do to help and engage with this as well. Let's start with Don.
There are many things that we can do at all levels, but I think the number one thing that we can do, and the moderator talked about it, is invest in early childhood education. David Douglas has an early works project that we are starting to serve every family and child birth to age 5 in an elementary catchment area. And if we really want to stop the achievement gap from opening, that's what we have to do. I'm sold on it. It will make a difference. I think if you look at the data, once those children get past the 3rd grade and they're not at 3rd grade reading benchmark, 75% of those students will not graduate from our high schools. We are putting hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars into interventions, and it's not because teachers aren't trying their best, it's not because administrators aren't trying, it's not because parents aren't trying. Our kids are behind. Kids coming into my school district are 2 and 3 years behind when they enter kindergarten. So asking my kindergarten, 1st and 2nd grade teachers to catch them up, it's almost impossible. So a novel idea. Why don't we start engaging those parents and their families at the earliest possible moment? To solve this, to increase our graduation rate, if we could have universal preschool for all of those students, that would be the most wonderful thing. And we would. The struggle, we know what the struggle is. The struggle is the financing. But I would invite you, if you want to come see a quality program, with the help of the Children's Institute. I see Swati sitting out there. It's a great program. I know that Carol's got some of the same programs going on. We just we need to get it to more of our kids immediately, because every year that goes by in my school, about 800 kids are going through my school. And of those 800 kids, we've lost 300 of my kids. Our graduation rate's about 70%, and that's deplorable. And the 30% are our children of color, our kids of poverty. So,
thank you. Karen, I'm going to make you follow that up. Can you tell us your suggestion?
I could, and I just want to amen that, because those early learning programs are absolute of desperate need in Park Rose School District. So anytime I hear about wonderful birth to 5 programs or birth to 3 programs, I'm always jumping up and down yelling, me too, me too, me too, because we definitely need the same thing. And we're very hopeful for full-day kindergarten funding in the state. I already have full-day kindergarten funding in my general fund. I would use that for a half-day 4-year-old program across the district for free. And so that's kind of the direction we're going. It's not enough. It won't even be enough. But I'm going to take this from a completely different point of view. I'm also a planning and sustainability commissioner for the city. And so the place I would take this is in economic development. I feel like in East Portland, especially where we are, there is not enough emphasis on affordable housing, affordable transportation, right on, multifamily housing that also has green space for kids, portioned out across the city in a proper way so you're not overloading certain places, doing it mindfully. But the last bit is on economic development, you guys. This is all about economics. When our kids have the skills and they are able, through the 40-40-20, whatever route that ends up, they have the ability to raise their families and get health insurance. That's a whole other subject, but health insurance, and live a life that people dream about in this country. We have to look at economic development in specific areas that match our culturally specific groups. It's not the same for everybody. And I'm just sick and tired of everybody having the attitude that it's through our eyes. It isn't the way that we see things. We have very specific, culturally specific needs across the city. And I'm hoping that through people's advocacy, we can see the connection to our children and our families.
Thank you. Carol, can you tell us about your suggestion?
Well, and I actually am going to say I agree with both of the ones that have just been made as being really core. We're also focused on both early childhood and invigorating what we're doing at the high school level to really prepare kids to be ready for college and career. And they're both places that the community can be engaged. The thing I would call out is just an awareness, because this is new behavior for us as a community, is the collaboration we're already doing. And I'll call out All Hands Raised, because part of what this has been is it's brought together the 6 districts that serve the city of Portland to one table where we're all working on common goals and common strategies about how we understand where we're being successful, how we build on the best practices, how we share what we're learning. But at that same table are also our city leaders, our county leaders, our business leaders, our nonprofit leaders, and our university presidents and community college presidents. And we meet on a regular basis to figure out how we as a whole community are supporting success for our kids on a continuum. And we have figured out what are we measuring together and how are we talking about it together. And then you've heard us reference collaboratives. These are groups that have formed where we're all in a group as superintendents on an Eliminating Disparities collaborative, where we're looking really specifically at, and again, disproportionate discipline, because it reflects the culture of a school, like what's happening with your kids and whether they're staying in school or whether you're having the need to send them away from school in order to figure out how you teach responsibility. That we're working on together. This is new behavior for us. You've had 6 districts that function pretty independently, so to have us wrapped around at a single table doing this work together, I feel is really hopeful for our future, and it's also an avenue for others to be able to plug in and be part of that support.
Thank you. All right. Well, we are now going to open up to the Q&A portion of the program. So if you have written a question on the index card, which is located in the middle of your table, please hold it up high. You could raise all of your hands so that we can see all of our hands raised. I don't know if Dan got that joke. Kind of fell flat. So staff will go around and collect it for you. And we'll now take questions from the audience. So as always, we invite members to the microphone to ask their question. Asking questions at the Friday Forum microphone is a benefit of City Club membership, and membership is open to everyone. So before asking your question, please identify yourself as a City Club member, and please ask your question in 30 seconds or less. And I will try to read at least one index card question as well. So let's go ahead and start.
Hi, Sue Shattuck, a City Club member. I'm wondering, with kids that are coming into school a couple years behind, why can't they have a couple years extra to finish? You know, why do we have to pigeonhole everyone into going through 12th grade and then the door closes for them?
Let's have Carol answer that.
So I will. Is it still on? I love that you're asking that question, because one of the things actually as a state, we're also looking at 4-year graduation rates, but we're also looking at 5-year graduation rates and completion rates, and individual schools do plan with their students. If you're somebody who needs a 5th year, it's one that we're tracking in a way that we didn't previously. So like there's at least a sentiment out there that makes sense if it makes sense for a student.
Okay, next question.
Edward Hershey, City Club member. Superintendent Smith, you were candid in citing the ongoing disparity in suspension and other discipline by race as a problem. And I noticed you said your goal in the coming year is not to eliminate it, but to reduce it by 50%. This suggests to me that it's really an intrinsic problem. And I'm wondering, could you talk about the root causes, both in terms of the students involved and the way the staff relates to them, and what specifically you're doing to attack those causes?
So part of what we're doing, and again, we're doing this together, and we're looking at it from multiple perspectives. And we're like, our goal is to reduce it by 50% exclusions overall in a 2-year period, and then reduce the disparities by 50%. And we've got a group of, we've been going deep, looking at our data, looking at what's specific schools where kids are being suspended or expelled, if there are patterns, if there are particular offenses like insubordination that are very subjective rather than objective. Do we change what we do there? We've got kids in the early grades that are being suspended and expelled. We're looking at a focus there of whether or not that's the right strategy. We're doing restorative justice. That is a program that really looks about how you work differently with kids in taking responsibility for their actions and being able to do restorative practices in our schools. So we're doing positive behavior intervention and support, which is really, again, about personal responsibility taking. But we're looking for other avenues to support teachers having other mechanisms than sending away as the ways that we're working with our students. So it's a pretty intensive focus. And then as districts, we're also looking at a policy level and at a administrative directive level of what are the practices that we're actually setting in motion and giving people the framework to do in our districts.
Next question.
Rob Rostoff, City Club. 40-40-20 is here today and supposed to be achievable by 2025. Given that and the fact that we now have Common Core overlaid on that, I'm just curious, how do you expect to turn your school districts around in such a short time?
Karen, do you want to answer that?
Sure. You know, hope and pray, hope and pray. Actually, a lot of us sitting here have been dealing with Common Core, not just now, but for the last couple of years. We saw it coming. I just want to kind of do my own little shout out about it. I think it is one of the ways we get kids ready for 40-40-20 because it really requires you to develop high levels of critical thinking skills. It is not rote memory. It's teaching kids Costa's levels of thinking. And by honing in on teaching children how to utilize the material that they are learning in a thinking way, I really feel like it is possible for us to be able to really move the dial. And if we start that with our kids in kindergarten and preschool, taking what they learn and applying that and using that in a team situation, learning how to deal with that material, I think it is the way for us to move forward for all of our kids.
Thank you. Next question.
Good afternoon. Anita Yap, Board of Governors, City Club of Portland. I'd really like to thank you for all the great work you're doing. The programming and partnerships are great. One thing that I didn't hear you talk about is with the statistics. What are the statistics of your teachers and administrative leaders in particular in your schools, and what is your target and your timeline for getting there?
Don, do you want to start?
My teachers and administrators do not mirror my population in any shape or matter. We're part of a program through Portland State in which we are trying to look at our own students as they come up to grow teachers, to encourage them to look at the teaching profession. But it's so deplorable. It's non-existent. So at this, I think long term we're looking, how do we get folks into our schools to mirror our student population? But in the short term, we know that's not going to happen overnight. So we have to take the teachers that we have, make sure that they are culturally aware of the students that they're serving. And to be honest, we need to start changing some of our behaviors and attitudes to learn about. We are not, in David Douglas, in Portland Public, and Park Rose, we are not teaching to a white middle-class population anymore, and our teachers, many of our teachers are still teaching to a white middle-class population. I have a daughter that goes to David Douglas. She's a junior. She's one of the few white middle-class students that are there. They're not existing in David Douglas, and we need to catch up. And it's just not teachers. It's administrators. It's leadership. And as Carol said, it's a big learning curve. It's not something that happens overnight, and it's just not the school. Then it's engaging your community, your partners, business, and having them understand that this is a problem. It's not going to be solved overnight, but we need to get on it, and we need to get on it quick if we're going to close that achievement gap with our children of color.
Karen?
One just quick piggyback I wanted to mention so the room would know. The Oregon Education Investment Board has a committee called the Oregon Minority Educator Advisory, and they are working very specifically on ways to change this fact in Oregon teacher preparation and administration preparation. And they have some great and wild ideas. And I'm hoping that we make a move forward on that. I just want to mention that. And Rob Larson, who's here from the Oregon Leadership Network, is one of those movers and shakers.
So the only other thing I'd add is the state report cards that come out momentarily now have a little graph in them that shows you by grade band. Here's what the demographics of the students are. Here's what the demographics of the teachers are for that grade band. So like just this is something that as a state we're really focusing on. And this year for PPS, we actually recently passed an affirmative action plan, which is part of how we're implementing the Oregon Minority Teachers Act, which is some of what we're just talking about. But it's really specific active recruitment, and we actually had the opportunity this year to hire a lot of new teachers, and we actually made some really good strides in diversifying our workforce. So we're actually very excited about it, but it's very intentional work and like a lot of really intentional recruitment. So, and then supporting, this is where I will say a call to the community, because this is also where we've also got people moving to Oregon. We're looking for bilingual teachers. We're looking for skill sets, and it is one where we as a community, how do we also create the welcome that makes people want to stay and be here? And I think that's one that we're also really focused on.
Good afternoon. I'm Marissa Johnson. I'm a City Club member. And my question is, I mean, you addressed briefly the early childhood education aspect of supporting families, especially working multiple jobs, trying to support their families, and the summer achievement gap and access to education throughout the summer months is another one of those struggles for those families. And it's not just about educating their child. In many cases, it's about a safe place for their kid to be while they're at work. And I'm wondering what each of your districts are doing, what conversations you're having, and what are your ideals for summer access for students?
Don, do you want to start?
Yes. So most of our schools are open during the summer, not all summer. We do have some maintenance issues that have to be taken care of. This year was a little bit more difficult because we had bond projects taking place, but also we are starting programs with SUN, with our county, with also city funding, kindergarten counts, to where we're able to bring some of our students in before kindergarten happens. I'm a proponent. I wish we could find out a way to fund it year-round school, and that wouldn't just be for early childhood, for all of our students. So the other thing, we do need to make our schools more accessible to our communities, to parents. And not only, I think we need to get away, it doesn't always have to be with our teachers. There are a lot of great community advocates out there. There are parents out there that can do great things for their kids once you empower them to do. One of the things at Earl Boyles that we are doing, we are starting to empower that parent group. And it's about 50 to 60 Latino moms, and they are unbelievable. They are empowered. They are just not making copies. They're not making cookies. They are coming in and providing the leadership and the structure for that school, and now they know how to advocate for their children.
Okay, it looks like we're coming up on time, and I'm getting eyes from everyone, but I saw a lot of head nods between Carol and Karen on that one. Sorry about that.
Can I add one more thing on this one? No, he didn't.
Okay. We have run out of broadcast time for further questions, and we'll have to stop for the day. As we close, please join me in offering our sincere thanks to Sheila Martin, Danny Ledesma, Karen Gray, Dawn Grotting, and Carol Smith. Thanks for listening.